Turn on.
I don't know. Might be over there, I don't know. Might be one on each side. Try it. I don't remember that far back. Oh, this one. And there's switches on this side too, so I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Ready to go, Jacob?
Six.
Oh, good. All right, 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Have a motion to approve the agenda.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
And a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You guys ready? I didn't ask you good. Okay. Let's all say pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good.
All right. The public comment, if there's public comment, now it's time to do that. Hearing none, we'll engineer it. Okay.
Good evening, J.E. King, Page County Engineer. Fine day in Page County, a little windy today, but that's what the weather, not snowing. I sent out the engineer update Monday evening. We're bladed, we're hauling rock, we're cutting brush, just like we've been doing the last several days, or the last several weeks. The crews down here in trees on Page Center Road, 230th Street. Once we're done there, we're gonna go to northwest part of the county. We have a project up there. And we're winding it up. We pulled snow fence this week, last week. Yes, Tuesday afternoon, we did flagger training for our entire crew. There was also some folks from Taylor County and LTAP, Ames, put it on. We're getting the mower tractors ready to go. John Deere's ready, the red tractor's in the shop now. And we got some minor issues on trucks. Bridge construction is continuing as scheduled. The first picture is coming up. This is the view of the Essex Bridge from east to west. The green bars in the foreground are the east abutment, and there's 2 piers and the west abutment. So our substructure is complete. Essentially, we're out of the water, except we're really not out of the water because we need a work road through the river to set beams. And there'll be a pause while we wait on the beach. Right now, they're putting on riprap on the embankments. You do that before you put the beams on. The next picture is 280th Street from west to east. You can see at the very bottom of the photo, there's an H-pile, then there's the west pier, and piles are encased in the cap. The next thing with tarps on it is the east pier. Poured that yesterday, late afternoon. And then the form, difficult to see, but there's the east abutments formed up. They're gonna place concrete in that tomorrow morning. So then only substructure remaining is the west pier that you can see. And that will probably Monday or Tuesday, probably Tuesday. The J-road plans have been submitted to DOT. On track for June letting. It'll be this fiscal year, and then it will not show up on next fiscal year's program because it's already been let. So I've got a couple of agenda item things here, but if you could move to the next picture. The board, this is an issue in Spring Valley where a lawyer from Shenandoah sent the board a letter about possibly vacating Winterset Drive inside Spring Valley. Here you have photographs of that. And it's also on the screen. That's the only way this large parcel to the west side accesses. The DOT will be hesitant or uncooperative with providing access to Highway 2. So this is just a dedicated road in the subdivision that wasn't built at the time the subdivision was built. The road in the subdivision was built by the developer and then turned over, and the county accepted them. So the way I envision this is whoever develops this parcel to the west is responsible for developing this Winterset Drive, and then the board will direct us to do it, but I think the responsibility belongs to not the county. Anyway, I don't think we should consider vacating this road.
And I did talk to Milan Sorensen, the attorney, and he said that he thought because she didn't have access, that it was probably dead. He would talk back to his client, so.
Thank you. Questions about the engineer's update? Okay, moving on to the proposed public hearing date. I did send the board a draft proposal. This is a map, what the 5-year plan could look like. I'll need just set a public hearing date for that. The date I have is on the update is incorrect. It'll need to be probably the 13th, which is 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
On this map here, did the money run out? What happened with the J55 at the end of this year, this 23 year? To 25.
Right, that's skipping that year between.
Well, originally there was the J Road and then 5 miles of J53 this year. The map we had a few months ago.
Right.
And then J53 was in 25. So everything, so it was 23 and 25, everything's jumped.
Let me, I forgot that part. Let me check this again.
If they're still, if that was the case, you know, what happened with money, there would just, everything would jump back 2 years. Would be the J55 would be in 23 and J53 would be in 25. If that works, that's the way it was in the map a couple months ago.
Right.
Maybe
So we can't make it in 23, or we can make it in 24, J55 and FY 24. But we're working on 24.
Right, well, I mean, right, 24, I guess, whatever this season is called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is the 13th suitable for a public hearing?
I think so, it'll be an evening meeting if people want to come in and talk about it,
Okay,
that'd be fine.
thank you. And then the final agenda item I have is, we will permit from, or permit request from Mid-Am on bringing power to a bin site on 130th Street, west of A Avenue, that's just short of just north of the Shenandoah Bridge over the Mission of Watna. And we know where this place is located.
Grand Power and Greenman.
Yeah.
You said?
And then the land there on the northwestern ridge change forms must be farmed a little bit differently.
Okay. I'll hear a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, the motion second to grant that permit, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
The other thing, JD, on the road grader you tried out at John Deere, are you gonna do a cat also? Or
No, we have.
are we gonna,
Enough cats.
you're what?
We have enough cats, we don't need a
Okay.
demo cats.
So are we gonna move forward with that grader?
We're gonna.
Get a bid?
Plus some bids, how many
So
some bids?
bids.
A couple or?
Well, we could, write it so we can take one or two based on that.
They might get hungry, if they think they're doing two, maybe they're on the table. Do a bid for one, or buy two, do it that way.
Right.
So what would they do if we buy two of them?
Right.
Either brand or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
do that. Okay.
You've got the planning and zoning thing too, JD, don't you? Oh, okay, I thought you were leaving.
I do have it.
What's next up on the agenda is the point, and I had questions on that. When does the term start and end? Is it end in January, when it should normally be with all the rest of the boards, or? When do these, are they 2-year terms? I was trying to look that up. I don't,
They're like forever.
well, like every board, we.
Yeah.
I think in a little book,
How
it's
many-
2 years. I saw
How many zones?
7.
7, okay.
That's the book I was looking at. I think it said 2 years.
It's 2-year, yeah,
So it start, it should have probably started in January.
yes.
So do they have offsetting years, or are they all 2 years, every one of them?
They're all 2 years. I remember
Okay,
right.
then. Does the term, we need to make it our motion, the term ends, what would that be, December 31st of 24?
Right,
Yes.
Right, is that right?
Yep.
So this term is for December 31st of 2024. From today to when, I guess.
I would like to see us keep the ones that have, experience on there, Craig Harris, Marty Mattis, Lisa Carlson. And then George Crawford had been on there before. And those have all applied. Those have, they have
Well, they
experience
haven't
from
met
being
for
on
10
there.
years, they have not met for 10 years.
No, but they had a lot of experience before because they met more frequently back when they were meeting. So I'd like to see at least those 3 go back on, or 4 go back on, and then if we're doing a gender balance, then Kim Tudor would be the other one. Because we have 2 women. That's my suggestion anyway.
Yeah, do we get just 7 after?
There's 8 applicants and 7 spots, I think.
Yeah,
It was-
I think the only one I didn't know was Lisa Carlson. I don't know who she is.
These
I
are
know, I
my-
know all the other people.
Yeah.
that are- And they, I like, I know all of them and I know their reputation is, and I think they could all bring something.
Yeah. We know what the term is.
But yeah, I just wasn't sure how many people were putting on with
7,
it, so.
the 7 for just less than 2 years.
Yeah.
There were 6 on the last time. 6. There were 6 on last time.
I thought there were 7 board members.
There were 6,
Oh,
yeah.
there's only 6?
Mhm.
What do we know if it's supposed to be 6 or 7?
I don't know that it makes a difference. I don't have any.
7 is the
There were
total.
7? Okay, so we were short
Chad,
one.
you should have an odd
Okay.
number on board, always have an odd number,
Yeah.
Okay.
so. Okay, I have all their stuff out here. And.
Do we have to have a equal number
It's a
of,
suggestion, but
like I said, the only one I didn't recognize is Eastlake, and I'm good with the others. We had to make a motion.
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure which one I'm missing. I
yeah, there's
feel like I'm missing one.
Marty, Craig,
Craig,
Kim,
Jesse,
Jake, Jesse, George, Dean, and Lisa.
and I'm missing George.
Now this one says. Okay. Could have read this before. It's talking about 4-year terms.
Been a year since we read that,
I think I've got it somewhere, but
when I remember reading that, we gotta use that one time, but I don't know that it really, I think it's a suggestion, I don't think there's anything that can force that. It is who fits the bill. So,
um, okay, so I make the motion. I'll move that we appoint Craig Harris, Lisa Carlson, Marty Metis, George Crawford, Kim Tudor, Dean Weiss, and Jacob Morrison. 5, 6, 7.
what did you know?
Who did
I'm
you
sorry?
not put on there?
Jesse Stimson.
For your second? Second, lack of second.
No, I would like to make a different motion.
Okay, motion dies for lack of second. What's your motion?
I would motion Jacob Morrison, Jesse Stimson, George Crawford, Kim Tudor, Dean Weiss, Craig Harris, and Marty
Mattis.
Mattis.
Okay,
as
do
a 7.
I hear a second on that motion? I'll second that. Our motion and second, any more discussion on that? Well, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I voted aye.
Oh, okay. All three voted aye. All right, got that done. All right, let's see here. Now we're to Kaylee Langle, Summit Carbon Solutions project update.
How y'all doing this evening?
Warm in
Warm and windy out there. Better than cold and windy, I guess. You know. All right, so I'll just start by reintroducing myself. My name is Kaylee Lingrell. I work for Turnkey Logistics, representing Summit Carbon Solutions. We primarily do the non-environmental permitting, so I work with JD, road crossing permits, driveway permits, stuff like that. My primary job, however, is going around to county boards, giving updates, answering questions. So with me today, I have Richard Dove. He's one of our construction managers in Iowa. And then I also have Sherry Timmons. She's the regulatory affairs manager in Iowa. And I'll let her give some of her background.
Thank you. Hello, and Chef, appreciate the opportunity to meet with you all. Just briefly, I started with Summit this past January, and prior to joining Summit, I was the Iowa Regulatory Affairs Manager. I spent the majority of my career in public service. Summit, I worked as a senior project manager with the nonpartisan service agency, the LFA, which works for the Iowa Assembly. And I also had some years working with the Iowa Economic Development Authority as a team leader, working on several environmentally related programs and regulatory compliance. I also spent some time as a bureau chief with the Iowa DNR, working in the waste management and the energy efficiency side. About a year with Iowa Lee County Board of Supervisors as a policy analyst and administrator for the board. My first job out of grad school was with the United States General Accountability Office. My role is to act as a resource to the Board of Supervisors for our communities and counties that will be working in as part of this project. My commitment is to be as open and available as possible to encourage all possible accountability and transparency in our communication and transactions. I'll leave you my card so you have my contact number. With the other Summit staff are based out of Ames, Iowa, and just look forward to the opportunity to work with you. And thank you so much.
So today I really kind of wanted to do something similar to what I did last time. So just give an update, and then I'll also talk about the new handout I have here, the pipeline facts. So, well, first of all, let me ask, since there's two new board members, I just want to ask you guys how familiar you are with the project and really what the goals are. Would it be beneficial if I kind of went over that a little bit, or?
Well, I was here last time you were here, so, I mean, I remember what you're kind of talking about, and I've read up on some of it, so,
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to really, for my benefit, you don't have to backtrack, through everything.
I read
so.
up on it too.
Okay, all right, so you guys probably know at this point, safety is still a big concern. So really what I've been going around trying to do the last couple times I've gone through the counties is talk about our PHMSA regulations that we're required to follow. So I have just a few of them listed out here. I did provide the codes on this page, so if you're curious, you can look them up. If you Google one of these, it's probably going to take you to the PHMSA website, and you can look through. There's a ton more regulations than just this. We'd be here all night if I tried to go through all of them. But if there's something that you're specifically curious about, there's a table of contents. It's pretty easy to find specific sections. But I'll just kind of go through these, some of the more important ones. So, number one, just starting at number one, we are regulated by PHMSA CFR 195 that does specifically call out carbon dioxide. Number two, that just talks about the kind of pipe that we're required to use. So Summit Carbon Solutions is using a high carbon steel pipeline, and it's 100% US manufacturing. And then number three, this is something that I really wanted to bring up, public awareness. There is an entire section in PHMSA dedicated to public awareness. So part of what we have done so far, just before we're even in operations is, one thing being these meetings, trying to do quarterly updates to county officials. Also landowner open houses, meeting with different individual landowners, just educating people, the public, any stakeholder that's interested on the project. Because it's very important that people are aware of what this is and the importance of it. So that's something that we continue to do. We will continue to do like throughout operations. Just speaking on one thing, the trainings that we will do. So once we get our state permits, we would start trainings with local EMS. Those trainings would be, a lot of the fire departments, we understand, are voluntary fire departments, so they have regular jobs that they go to every day. If they're pulled away from that job, Summit would compensate them for that. And then these trainings would continue yearly because that's what is required by PHMSA. So everything will be updated yearly. We'll meet together, we'll train together yearly. Moving on to number four, clearance between pipe and underground structures. So you notice it says any pipe installed underground must have at least 12 inches of clearance between the outside of the pipe and the extremity of any other underground structure, excluding drain tile. So that's from PHMSA. But the IUB steps in there and says, we want you to have 12 inches distance between your pipeline and our drain tile. So that's through the Iowa Ag Risk Mitigation Plan. So Summit's best practice would be 24 inches. That's case by case. That could change. There's things that happen out during construction, but you're always going to have the 12-inch minimum because that's what's required at the state level in Iowa. And then with anything else underground, federally it's regulated. They can have that 12 inches of clearance. Moving on to the inspection of right-of-way, number 5. So the way that we'll address this is it has to be flown every 2 weeks. That's by airplane, not drone. And that's really that's kind of like the last thing along the assembly line of safety. So that's catching people if they're digging in the easement or they're starting to construct a building, and just being able to see that and say, hey, please don't do this. There's a pipeline there. Number 4, assessment intervals. So this is where the inline inspection tools come into play. So the inline inspection tools these days are very sophisticated. So they can check for things like depth of cover, like loss of depth of cover. They can also check for corrosion, dents in the pipe, different things about the product in the pipe. So there's a lot of information that we can gather in order to prevent any kind of issue with the pipeline, throughout the years. Last thing is the valves. I know I talked about this last time I was here, but I just do want to note the last time I was here, I think we were going through some changes, but there is a valve site. So when it talks about number 7, valves and location, we're required to have those at least every 20 miles across the project line. So no matter where you're at on the project, there will be a valve at least 10 miles from you. And the purpose of these is to, if there's any kind of temperature or pressure change in the line, they would automatically shut. And so we can monitor these from our home office in Ames, but also we could access them at the site. And you can see on your map, we do have one in Page County, proposed in Page County. So just so you know, it's a new addition from the last time I was here. But that's kind of a good thing. And then as far as the update, I'll just tell you guys the land acquisition where we're at. So in Page County, we are at 70% easement miles acquired. And that's as of, I think it was last Wednesday when I got those numbers. And in the state, we're at 67% easement miles acquired, so, pretty in line there with the state average, pretty close. And then as far as permitting, we did submit the road crossing permit to JD, in November, I believe. And then we will also have a driveway permit coming through for that valve station, because there's a permanent driveway.
What's the reason to a permit if you don't have any legal?
So that's just the permit.
Why do you need a permit if you're not?
Well, with the project,
Well, I wouldn't grant a permit until it's done. And
so with a project this size, the reason, and you know, a lot of counties are taking the stance that they want to wait for IUB approval.
No,
But with a project this size, there are tons and tons of permits, federal permits, state permits, local permits. So we try to get those in ahead of time, just so they're all in place. And you know, that's part of the IUB process, is they want to see that we're progressing. So to show that progression as far as, you know, making, you know, deals with landowners on easements, acquiring these permits, as things that the IUB wants to see. So that is why we are submitting permits. And I think that's really all I have for updates. But of course, if you guys have any questions, concerns, feel free, please ask. That's what we're here for.
refresh my memory here, it says 50 feet from a dwelling is what, and you said you're designing the pipeline to far exceed that. In here, so what does that mean?
So it varies across the project line. Everywhere across the project line, we're more than 50 feet. I can tell you that.
50 feet is pretty close to a house or a big old pipeline.
That's, well, this pipeline, I will say, it's pretty small compared to most that are out there.
50 feet, this room.
Do you have
50 feet
what
wide.
the pipe diameter is, what's supposed to be?
Yeah, so it's 6 inches in this county.
Okay,
And you know, that 50 feet, that's the regulation, we're going above that. And it varies because we negotiate those setbacks with landowners.
Well, what if somebody doesn't want to sign that?
That's, you know,
How
it's
close can you put it to their property line?
50 feet is the regulation. We're
Property
pulling
line
it-
or dwelling or anything? Or what's the property line setback, what's that?
I don't believe there's a property line, I believe it's the dwelling.
So if there's no dwelling on the farm, you could run it basically about as close as you want. That has to be a few feet from the fence to dig it, but so you can get about as close as you can physically dig to their fence, somebody who doesn't want
We're doing a 10-foot offset.
10 foot. So 10 foot is that back from the.
And I will say, you know, one thing that I actually learned from Richard is our pipeline was designed with landowners in mind. So if you look at any other pipeline route versus our route, you'll see that they go from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. So our pipeline route is designed to where it's away from people's homes. And it does, you know, skirt property line. That is a starting point. So, and that's negotiated with landowners as we go. So we didn't want to cut straight through people's field, if that makes sense.
You plan on using no eminent domain whatsoever?
Again, with a project this size, it could happen.
So
The thing-
for profit,
The thing that we want to avoid
that
is,
would not be, that would not be good, I don't like that. For your private gain, you would force somebody to do something.
so that's kind of why I was bringing up the purpose of the project, because it's not, you know, we do believe it's a benefit for the community. So the whole point of the project, you know, we know 57% of corn grown in Iowa, it's sold to ethanol plants. That's a huge, huge market. So with the regulations that are coming down the line from large buyers of ethanol, it's gonna require them to lower their carbon intensity scores. If they can't do that, we're not saying that, you know, there are other ways to do it other than a carbon pipeline. But this is the most efficient way at this point, and that's why ethanol plants are signing on with us. So with them being able to sell into these low carbon markets, they're gonna get a premium for their ethanol. And then in turn, the corn farmers would be able to, you know, continue to succeed as well, because if that market's not there, there will be, you know, financial consequences.
But arguing a financial gain for a private organization or any private people to use eminent domain is not a good argument in my mind. Eminent domain is only used for absolute necessity roads and things that have to go through for the public use, not a private game. So that's why I'd like to hear you say, well, we're not gonna use any eminent domain. You can run that pipe any which way for people to sign up and stay back far enough, but to be open to using eminent domain is pretty, in my opinion, pretty serious for profit. This happened in Missouri. I watched this happen with power line. For profit investors, it wasn't for to sell electricity, and they forced it on several of my neighbors down there.
Mm.
For private investors. It was,
So,
they made a lot of money and forced people to do things they didn't want to do. And
yeah, well, what we hope for and what we've seen, you know, especially in South Dakota, is once we can get in front of people, we've had a lot of success there recently. And once we can get in front of people and really explain the project, they understand. Also, what takes a lot of time is the easement's a legal document. So people want to look it over with their attorney, as they absolutely should. And it takes time to get things right, you know, because a blank easement is just a blank easement. You want to add your provisions, you want it to be specific to your property because every property is different. So it does take time. The only time we would want to use eminent domain we don't want to use it with disagreements with landowners. You know, where it's likely to happen and why people can't get 100% per se is because there are title issues a lot of times. So if there's no, you could have every heir to the land sign an easement agreement, but if it's not legally binding, it doesn't matter. So that's one instance where it could be used aside from, just not being able to come to an agreement with the landowner. But we do hope to get in front of people and be able to work with them as best as possible.
but you have the threat of using eminent domain still.
We do not want to threaten anything.
Well, that's what it is. If you say you might use it, I mean, that's a threat. So anyway, I just had a big problem with domain, for private game.
Well, you are alone enough, and it's a divisive issue, any way to look at it. It's obviously, it's part of the other utility corporate statutory revenue provisions. There's been bills drafted and moved through, the Senate and the House. And it's a difficult issue all around, but it's, Haley said, no, it's not good for, in terms of eminent domain to get into some kind of tussle. And that's why there's also provisions for if eminent domain is involved, if there's ensured fair treatment of that, and then the provisions of that also, it's statutory probably. I would suggest when we talk about benefits, though, we don't ignore the environmental benefit of capturing CO2, which is the #1 precursor of greenhouse gas, which impacts our climate and our future economically and socially.
Well, that's an opinion.
It is
Not necessarily scientific.
if I may, and I it's not my intent to get into he said, she said, but just to kind of lay it out, there are environmental impacts, there are economic impacts, and if you would like us to come back at some time and talk about that, talk about the studies, the economic impact studies that have been done with regard to the future of ethanol and its relationship to the agricultural economy and Iowa's statewide economy. More than happy to come back and bring in people who are more than happy to talk. I just want to make sure that, people's opinions, and that's why we're in this room, and that's why we do the pledge of allegiance.
Right.
We're here
Hear
to
it
share.
out.
We're here to share, so I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. No, you're totally fine. I mean, I could say we could argue the environment stuff all day, but at the end of the day,
I just have a hard time believing that ethanol plants would shut down if they can't do this.
that's not.
I just really don't, that seems like a threat that they've thrown out there that, well, if we don't get this passed, then the ethanol plants could go away and the farmers won't have anything to do with their corn. I just don't buy that.
Yeah.
And that is another point issue or topic. And as I said, we could certainly walk through that a bit more, but even a study, if I mention a study that was done by the Iowa Renewable Fuels Association, and we can follow that breadcrumb to, you know, well, who did the study well, and get into some debate on that. But
Well,
even looking beyond, especially.
And all that stuff is just here and there, really, what we sit here to do is to talk about making sure nobody gets run over.
Right, and the other thing is safety. I think
Yeah.
safety is a
Keep
huge
them safe and make sure.
worrisome to a lot of people,
Yeah.
including myself. So you talked about fire departments, I'm on the fire department. In Shenandoah, so, you know, I was curious that you said that they'd be doing trainings and things, because I know we've had other things come in. And say, yeah, promise all this things, and our department does not have the capability to answer to a call. Of this magnitude, if something would happen, a leak or whatever. And, so I'm not sure, you know, I don't know what, you know, we would have to, you know, hope for the best, especially if you're gonna put this close to, you know, homes or, you know, it comes pretty close to the western part of Shenandoah. So, the old Eaton's plant that is sitting right there on the west, right across the road, pretty much from the ethanol plant. Is very close, and they're renting that out to several other businesses, and, also, I've never heard exactly how you guys have bypassed the water issues with Shenandoah water fields or their well fields. I know that was an issue at one time. They were worried about the pipe coming through there,
Mhm.
in the west part, and,
Yeah, I haven't been a part of those conversations, but I know that they've happened with our
Yeah.
project managers. But just to speak on, since you're a part of the fire department here, to speak on that a little bit more, that, you know, we are required to come in yearly and do those trainings. Another thing is we'll have people locally across the line to respond and do regular maintenance. That's also required. And it's a certain distance. I can't tell you where they're gonna be at right now. But once we have our permit and everything is getting going, we will know that. And that's part of the update that I'll be able to bring you. But just talking about the safety a little bit more, so with our pipeline, since it's used for carbon sequestration, you know, a lot of people bring up Satortia, Mississippi, the elephant in the room.
yeah,
So our pipeline is not the pipeline in Satortia, Mississippi. It's used for carbon sequestration. So it has to be in the one in Satortia, Mississippi, it was used for enhanced oil recovery. So the difference there is their carbon didn't have to be as clean as ours does. Because in order to get your permit to sequester, it has to be 99 point something CO2. Another thing, you know, this handout that I gave you guys shows a map of the pipelines running through Iowa. So the little pink ones, that's natural gas. We are, as Summit Carbon Solutions, we're not ignoring the fact that CO2 is an asphyxiant. But when you look at the natural gas lines, natural gas is also an asphyxiant. And it's also explosive. So you can compare the two and kind of think about, you know, another thing, just comparing Satortia, natural gas. So CO2, if there's a pinhole leak in the CO2 line, CO2 doesn't get dangerous till tens of thousands of ppm. Whereas stuff like hydrogen sulfide can get really dangerous really quickly at a very low amount of ppm. I think it's around 10 or less. So if we're looking at a pinhole within this pipeline, it's not going to be as bad as a natural gas or, you know, in Satortia. It's pretty well known that there was hydrogen sulfide in that line, just due to the fact that there was a smell of, you know, rotten eggs, green, you know, CO2 is not green. It doesn't have a color. So those are just some differences there. And we could go into the mistakes that they made as far as, you know, they knew the line was exposed and they did not go out and fix that in a timely manner, and they've been fined for that substantially. Another thing is the soil in Mississippi, it is similar to the soil here. So what we have done, we've done soil studies that we did not have to do. It's just another way that we've gone above and beyond, and we've extended our bores to make sure that we are low enough to where this pipeline is not going to be exposed. But if it ever was, we would know because we do the flyovers, we would see it, and we would address that immediately because that's what you're required to do.
and when you guys are crossing the river, are you boring under the river or
Yes.
are you?
Yes, and that's, so you're talking about the Nishnabotna?
Yes,
Yeah.
nationwide.
So that's part of the Johnson Run Drainage District where we're
Yeah.
crossing. So, last time I was here, I spoke to, the other board members and you about that, and we've been working with, Fremont County on that. They're trying to come up with an agreement right now that, we both agree to and how to cross it, but it is a border.
And the fact of the matter is that if you read the Tarship report that was done by PHMSA, and what they were cited for, if I were to sum that up in one sentence, it would be the lack of due diligence on their part. PHMSA had identified about 9 months before the incident as Tarship, that operators should be looking for geohazards, such as, the movement of soil due to changing weather patterns or severe storms and the like. And they did not address that. There were other factors that if due diligence had been exercised, it's probably unlikely to happen here. I think the other important thing to keep in mind is that safety isn't just a matter of what happens after the pipeline goes into the ground. It's before pipe is even purchased or moved. There are so many checkpoints that PHMSA has in place that are covered under the integrity management plan that an operator must take into consideration in baselining what is the potential for risk, what is the interlinked relationship between these factors of risk, how are they going to mitigate that, how are they going to manage it. That's why they do the air dispersion model. That's why, in addition to the required air dispersion modeling, which we have done, we've also done an entire geohazard analysis over the entire 5-state footprint. So you build in your security, your safety, and your knowledge of what are the risks, what are the risks, what are the risks, and that's managed, day to day by following, what's happening in control or knowing about corrosion control and the like. So if you want to hear more about integrity management, we can certainly provide that because, as you pointed out, it's, your duty to keep the citizens safe and you want to know what those safety measures are. So.
And one thing I'll add that I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about public awareness, we are working with the Pipeline Association of Public Awareness. So they will help us follow those guidelines to a T. So if you look that up, we can kind of see what they help pipeline companies do. That's just an added thing that I thought we should mention as well.
So, and what is you guys have been dealing with other counties that have been working on passing ordinances. I would like to see us have an ordinance, not just basically more for the safety of the residents than anything, at least have them have something to fall back on to protect some protections. I think there's been suits and things with just trying to discourage counties from doing ordinances. I guess why is that? Why would,
So none of us have a law degree,
Right.
and we're not, with a project like this, there's a team that's working of lawyers that's working that. I'm not in the loop on that, I couldn't speak on pending litigation anyways. But what I can tell you is that I can talk to a project manager and have them reach out to you and maybe speak to you on some of these things, and I can relate, that you guys are looking into that, and that, I'm assuming you would want to talk to us about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
If I might, some of those ordinances have statements in them, the ilk of, 500 foot setbacks or some number regarding required setback. So in and of itself, establishing just kind of a prerequisite for a setback is going to mean the pipeline can't be built.
You can't move a pipe.
Can't build the pipe because when you submit your permit application to the IEP, you identify, and please, and you speak here, Richard, your construction expert. We identified a 300 foot corridor So, 150 feet on both sides of that corridor for our
So your maximum
Identify.
setback's gonna be hundred and fifty feet.
route. Well,
Well, no, sir. So the setbacks are negotiated throughout variances with each individual landowner. And an individual landowner in their negotiations can say, well, I don't want to right here. Yeah, we've done that.
Or what if the guy doesn't sign up? And you got 10 foot from his fence or 50 foot from his house or whatever, he's got a house next, then he gets no negotiation, we're his only hope. Or her hope, or whatever.
Yeah, we try to go through all of the like negotiations with all landowners, we're still doing negotiations, on the deal, today with the pipe there.
The eminent domain thing is where I come into this, I don't think it's right for eminent domain to use for public gain or private gain, I do not think that's right, and so.
Well, I will say, I think speaking on what Sherry was mentioning is there is a corridor set by the PUD, so we can only go so far. That is.
Within this permit. You'd have to give me a permit.
you'd have to start again,
Yeah.
you were right. And I also think there's the issue of, in and of itself, without the underpinnings of what are the proven yet again, the safety and engineering standards that go into a pipeline, and a CO2 pipeline being the safest of all pipelines that you might want to call out. The ordinance in and of itself is setting a number, but what's making a pipeline safe, an industry that has had no fatalities over the past 50 years, is the oversight and the experience of the federal agency. And I would feel much more comfortable with a pipeline, the CO2 pipeline in my backyard or underneath where hopefully someday my grandkids will come and play with the CO2 pipeline, knowing the expertise that went into that, the approval that went into that by federal regulators. Federal regulators were not gonna let me operate that pipeline until it's been tested hydrostatically for 8 hours at its maximum operating pressure. That there's staff 24/7 watching them deploy. We have 51 pipeline operators in Iowa. We have 41,000 miles of pipeline. I wouldn't know what we're sitting on now, but it's a reality of the day, and we want to make sure more than anything that we keep on talking. And so whatever we can bring to the table with your discussion, so you are informed or your planning and zoning people are. We're here to keep that discussion and to share information and expertise.
And your feelings and all that, sitting there feeling safe, if it was forced on you, might change.
I understand
Like we didn't force it,
I understand that is a
forcing somebody, it is not.
very sort of.
To make money.
Yes.
Anyway, well, that's my thoughts, any thoughts on Judy or anything else, Todd?
No, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, coming down here and all of you and all your expertise sharing with us.
And, if you have us, we hope to be back, next quarter and give you more updates.
As
And,
it goes along.
yep, and I'm sure, more questions come up, more things come up, so I'll be here.
Appreciate you all coming
Thank you.
in
Thank
person
you.
here, that's nice.
Thank you.
All right, got that done, all right, so we got, next up is the opioid agreement. A resolution here, and these agreements I printed off. And to kind of go over that, it's an additional settlement situation like we already did another form of it. This is with, let's see, Teva, Allegra, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. It's part of this settlement with opioids. For us to be part of that, and Richard is handling all of the what comes of that. He's in charge of that, right? All the
Yes,
opioid-
yes, and I think we're one of the last counties to sign off.
We gotta get her signed.
gotta get it done.
So,
Yeah.
does everybody understand what that means? You understand what it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've looked at that, yeah.
All right, so we got what that is. I got it printed, so we got.
And it's just you to sign it, right?
I think so,
Right, it's still good several times. The other's one, so yeah.
I think this is the-
So we will have a motion, and also the resolution here, we'll have a motion on the resolution, which is number what? I got it. The resolution 29, and this is, to sign this agreement, entering into this for the opioid settlement, so I need a motion on resolution 29. To pass that,
I'll make a motion that we pass resolution 29.
Second.
okay, a motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that done. Next thing, we'll go ahead and maybe make a motion to sign all these
I'll move.
agreements,
I'll move that the chairman sign the opioid agreements.
okay?
Yep, second.
All right, motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none, I'll sign all those and give them to Kristen. Here's, I'll lose them. What's next?
Lawn
Oh, yeah, it's got
application.
a deal there, I saw that online, that looked fine to me, they, just okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem.
I make a motion that we go ahead and approve that application.
I'll second it.
All right, motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, with that lawn application taken care of by Rachel Savory. Board communication, what we got there. We'll
I
talk
went-
about next week's meeting. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I went to the district, I don't know exactly what it is, the mental health meeting on Monday in Oakland. And there are proposed changes in the legislature to where they may be limiting the county membership on this board to 49%. Where right now we have, I think, 9 supervisors. And then a couple other people that are on it that have a stake in it. And so that whether that goes through or not, I don't know, but it's a pretty big thing with all of the, were you on that one before?
No.
No, Chuck was. They just have a lot of projects going on and taking care of the homeless and a lot of different for the different counties. So there's a lot going on, and there's also a thing that they have to spend so much this year or it will be cut next year. They want you to carry 20% of the fund balance, but then the year after, they only want 5%. So if you don't spend it, then you're gonna get a cut. So she ran through a whole bunch of lists of projects in different counties that could possibly work for spending a lot of this money. So that was that meeting. And then yesterday I went to the Wabansie meeting and they're busy too, so. A lot of mental health issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I did just make a note that, earlier in the week, I did get a hold of the roofers.
Oh,
And they were in town in Shenandoah, and they were supposed to go out and look at the roof at the Veterans Building. And I believe, I told them that it was leaking more so towards the Zion side. They had said that they had been in contact with the last board about some caps. There's some air turbines up on top. There's one, or at least one. It was supposed to be capped. Because they said, they had told them at the time, I guess, that if they don't cap it, water will continue to leak in there. And he was gonna climb up there and get back to me. He never did, so I need to give him another call to see, but somebody was supposed to, but I don't know if we ever did that. But that might be something we're gonna have to do.
so they don't cap it.
No.
That has to be
we'll have
somebody
yeah,
else.
We'll have to have somebody else do that.
Figure out what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's, just one of those little air transfer things. It's on top that water gets down in there.
It comes out.
Evidently, they had told them when they fixed the roof last time that we would still have that problem if we didn't get that capped.
Okay.
And so, and he saw that it was still up there. He called me and he said, well, I'll get up there and see if it's capped, but I don't think it is.
Okay, we'll
So-
get that going, I guess, figure that out.
Yep. And then I had several Zoom meetings. I had a Zion Zoom meeting, I had a SWIPCO and,
West Central.
West Central. Yeah, I had a lot, so, and like I said, all those boards have been really nice. They've sent me lots of reading material, so I'm trying to get through all that. And,
Well, my meetings will come in the next week or two, I didn't have any last week, so.
Well, one of the issues we talked about with Wabansie was the pay scale, and there's a new, and I don't, it's like a Medicare provider, It's, there's a couple of them now, and this is a brand new one. And it's hiring some of the people away from Wabansie and some of the other agencies because it's starting at $75,000 and they can work from home. So this is a big issue and so we discussed a lot with salaries. So,
Next week, the meeting will be the sixth at 9 a.m.
Yes.
I'd like to plan to make sure we got that all planned out. Let's see anything else. You said that, or ARPA deal, you talked to Jamie Cashman or?
no, he never did give me any
Got hold of
help.
somebody else?
I finally got, Chuck and Al had sent me the information, so I just went in and did it. Got it changed. So yeah,
Good, it's all good, okay.
so that's done. The report will be due by the end of, April.
Right, okay. Well, next time I see him, we're gonna have to ask him his homework.
He got back to me one time and he says, I'll get back to you again after I find out some information. Okay, so,
Okay. Well, we have the minutes. We're here somewhere. A motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah. thought
Yes,
they-
I think
thought
they're
they were
fine,
So
yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second it.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sounds good to me. All right, next one's easy. And a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.